Hello, everyone. Welcome inside the Guilty as Charged podcast. Was there a football game? Because I don't think the Chargers got the memo. I think Tyler in his robe didn't get the memo, but it's a rather unfortunate Sunday afternoon, unless you are also an Eagles fan. So I guess Alex got to watch Lane Johnson score a touchdown. I'm super jealous. I've always wanted the Chargers to be able to do that kind of thing. So, Alex, we'll start with you since you have the fortune of rooting for two teams, and one of them is kind of rolling right now. So, how you doing, man?
Yeah, the Eagles are fun. However, for about 75 to 80% of the game, I watched the Chargers, and that was an unfortunate experience. So you get to watch the Justin Herbert, unfortunately, not cooking show, and defense doing whatever the defense was doing. Great Kenneth Murray game, by the way. Just really fun all around.
Yeah, definitely not a great showing by the Chargers defense today. We'll, of course, dive into some of that. This is the first time that Alex is drinking on the show. So shout out to the Chargers for making that happen. I think Tyler also drinking on the show.
Yeah, I'm an alcoholic now, so thanks a lot, Chargers.
Join us, Steven.
I'm drinking some water, so that's what I'll be doing today. But
that's good.
I texted Alex and Tyler. I had to go on a walk after that, cool off, and still didn't work. So that's gonna be fun. All right, so we'll dive into this game as best as we can. Obviously, this was an utter disaster from Brandon Staley and the Chargers. Really just, you have 10 days to prepare for this game. The Texans are arguably one of the worst teams in the league. They are also going through COVID. So I know there's going to be a lot of justifying this week because certain players were out in this game. And of course, you don't have Joey Bosa, Michael Davis, Austin Eckler, Corey Linsley, Derwin James, all those kind of players. And that definitely matters. But no excuses for me this week. And that's kind of where I'm at. The Chargers, even with all of the COVID issues, were still the more talented team. They had the better quarterback. They had the better offensive line. They had the better receivers. But that's not what it looked like, man. This Chargers defense made the Texans offense look like the Bengals or someone else that's really good. Davis Mills, credit to him. He played really, really well. But this defense without the star players was just abysmal. And I kept on waiting for something to spark the defense and start playing better. And instead you gave up 135 rushing yards to Rex Burkhead, who's made like 4 starts in the last 3 years, all of them coming on the Texans. And it wasn't until today that a Texans player passed Mark Ingram for most rushing yards on the team. So it's just an awful, awful day from the defense. And, you had an important game for several players in this one. Uchenna Nwosu has, he is up for a contract. He's been playing really, really well. I don't think he did a single positive thing today. Alex mentioned Kenneth Murray. I've been a big Kaiser White fan, and he didn't really do anything much of today. Same with Nasir Adderley. So this defense left the Chargers in a terrible spot today, and I think deserves most of the blame.
Yeah, 100%. Listen, again, we're going to be talking about this game, understanding fully that COVID did hit the Chargers, but it also hit the Texans. So whatever we say, understand that we understand that COVID hit both teams, and that there are reasons the Chargers defense didn't look as good. But then again, can anybody name 5 players on the Texans offense after Rex Burkhead, maybe the quarterback? Great Brevin Jordan breakout game. I loved him coming out of the draft. And of course, he has a really, really great game against the Chargers. So great for that. It was so disappointing. I mean, they had the one opening drive that looked good. And then Jerry Tillery had that sack, and they did a really good job stopping that second drive. I thought, okay, the Texans had a good game script to start the game, whatever. And at this point, the defense will settle in. And eventually talent will win out, because I'm willing to bet that the Chargers had more talent on that defense than the Texans did on offense. You at least have 2 first-round picks in Murray and Tillery. You have 2 second-round picks in Nwosu and Adderley. Some other combination of guys, Linval Joseph, I think was a second-round pick, but that's been a while. And, the Texans, Tunsil's not even playing. Cooks was out. Collins was a 5th-round pick. Burkhead, probably undrafted free agent. I mean, Rex Burkhead had 207 yards rushing coming into that game. He finished with 149 and 2 touchdowns. He almost met his season high. And to me, look, do I think Staley could have done better this game? Absolutely. Was this defense completely undercoached, underprepared for this game? It seems like it. But man, like to me, it's all not all about. It just highlights the things that are wrong with the way Tom Telesco approaches off seasons and the draft. You know, the Chargers have taken 61 players under Tom Telesco the past 9 years, and they've only taken 4 true corners since that span. They finally took like a corner with Samuel Jr. It was the first corner they had taken in the first 3 rounds since 2015. Now, part of it I understand because, you see Davis playing well, or Hayward was playing well, or they thought Williams at the time, that corner was playing really well. But just neglecting it and to see that drop off from the guys that they had to the guys that are out there today is significant. And they've been ignoring that for so long. And it's bit them several times, not just this game. All season it's been a problem. Many years it's been a problem. And they've also not drafted an interior defensive lineman over the past 2 years at all. And then the one they drafted, admittedly, Tillery has been playing well, but they just aren't getting enough there. And so, this team does look like a team that tried to focus more on offense this offseason, whether it's free agency or the draft, but just the neglect at all positions makes this drop off so significant. But I don't know what it is about teams that have, because in my opinion, this is a good coaching staff. There are good coaches who coach their players well, and I've seen growth from many of the players on this team. Yet when the defense or any part of this team loses some of their players, but it's most notable on defense, they don't kind of rise to the occasion most of the time. The Broncos missing a ton of their offensive line against the Chargers, they all rose to the occasion and they went after the Chargers. The Texans missing everybody, they all rose to the occasion. So I don't understand what happens, because I think the coaches are good. I think they're coaching these guys well, and guys just aren't rising to the occasion. I don't know what it is, but it's embarrassing. This defense was awful, and yeah, it's arguably worse than giving the Browns their first win of the season. And because this team had something to play for, the Chargers had every reason to go out there and fight. They had 10 days to prepare for this team, and they got almost run out of the building by the Texans. It's embarrassing. It's one of the most embarrassing losses I can remember.
Yeah, I think the story for this game is depth. We talk about both teams getting hit by COVID, and the Chargers just don't have anyone that can play on their defense other than Derwin James, Joey Bosa, and that's kind of it. I think that's everyone on the defense. Michael Davis was obviously out this game, tested positive with COVID. But he hadn't honestly been playing well coming into this one. It's like, well, if you don't have those 3 guys at those 3 levels of your defense, then you're gonna get roasted. And that's what happened in this game. We got roasted by Rex Burkhead, who has a striking resemblance to porn star Johnny Sins. And he got 149 yards. We got run on by Rex Burkhead like Johnny Sins runs on porn stars. But anyway, so here's the thing. They were just really bad. Like, I don't know what it is with the third down defense. Like, that has been bad all year, whether Derwin James has been on the field or not. So it's just like unsettling how bad it is at this point. You just know they're not going to get a stop on third down. Jerry Tillery was probably the best defensive player today, and that's a problem for a lot of reasons. But I don't know, man. I had hopes for this game. I predicted a 30-10 win. They lost 41-23. So pretty bad on my resume there. I think coaching is definitely partially to blame. This is like one of the worst Staley games I've ever seen.
Sure.
If you're going to pride yourself on defense and also give a 70% third down conversion or whatever it ended up being by the end of that game, pretty abysmal. But it's also just a talent problem. And Tyler talked about it with Telesco. They don't have depth, and there's one person to blame for that. Other than the COVID, it's Tom Telesco. They just don't have the pieces to really support the team when guys are down. And this has kind of always been a top-heavy team. I think that was the storyline coming into the season, but it really showed itself today. So I'm not surprised by any means with kind of how this. Well, I am surprised by how the game went, but as the game went on, it was just like, well, starting Kenneth Murray at linebacker and Drew Tranquil's out, and he's we're doing that whole thing. And, the defense is getting run on again. Justin Jones is out. And then you look at the secondary where Derwin James might have come in an emergency situation. Didn't sound like he was going to come in unless anyone got hurt today. But I think we saw that this is the Chargers kind of at their worst. At their best, they are a team that can play with any team in the league. We saw that with the Chiefs on Thursday Night Football when Justin Herbert is balling and everyone's playing well. That's the team you get. At the same time, when the coaching is not up to par, particularly on the defensive side of the ball, and they're forced to have some adversity in regards to depth, then this is what you get with this Chargers team in particular. And, I know there's going to be a lot of rationalizing and talking about, the COVID list, but that's not an excuse. The Texans had 40 guys on the COVID list. They had about as many as we did. And we've just seen several teams that played really well coming off the COVID list. The Browns missed 2 quarterbacks and came within 2 points of beating the Raiders at home, with a spirited effort with 20 players out. So to me, using the COVID excuse, especially when you're playing the Texans, I don't want to hear it.
No, the COVID excuse, if they were playing the Chiefs and this were the situation, then sure. COVID is not an excuse for playing the Texans. And there's a lot of Joe Lombardi hate again going on in the chat. I don't know what you guys are looking at with this game. This is all about the defense, in my opinion. You can look at some of the offensive mistakes that they had, sure, but they moved the ball on every single drive and scored points on every single drive except for the pick 6. And so, the offense had whatever they wanted. The offense moved the ball at will. It's the defense that I don't know who Johnny Sins is, but apparently you give up 150 yards to Johnny Sins. Why would I lie about that? You have this defense that can't stop anybody. And I understand the COVID issues. Of course, you're going to miss Joey Bosa. Of course, you're going to miss Derwin James. But Uchenna Nwosu, we all said that he's been coming into his own. I've been saying the same thing about Nasir Adderley, Kaiser White. Linval Joseph is an established veteran who at one point in the season was the best defensive lineman on the team. Kenneth Murray, he was a first-round pick, I guess. You bring back Asante Samuel Jr. You have Alohi Gilman. So this was the worst we've seen the defense play, and it was against the worst offense that we have seen them play. So to me, this is about the defense. This is about the lack of pride. Did anyone outside of Braden Fajoko show any kind of spirit or energy on this defense? Honestly, this effort today was just inexcusable. And that's what it comes down to me. Brandon said that they had the best week of practice under his career this week leading up to this game. And that is complete bullshit. There's no way that you have this kind of great week of practice and then you put out this kind of effort. So, this isn't about execution to me. This isn't about, coaching. This is about effort and taking ownership of what you are doing and someone stepping up. Football is a next man up mentality. It's a next man up sport. Like Alex was saying, you watch the Browns down 2 quarterbacks and they played their asses off against the Raiders. You watch the Ravens, who are down 2 quarterbacks in this game, and they got smoked against the Bengals, but at least they played hard. At least they made an effort. You watch this Chargers defense today, and literally, Jerry Tillery had one good play, and he's the player of the game on defense. It's just despicable. This to me is all about the defense, and it's all about the lack of effort, and that's what it comes down to.
Yeah, no, I just wanted to, kind of further on that point. We sort of talked about Uchenna Nwosu coming into the game. This is the first game he's going to play without Joey Bosa. He has a chance to put up some pressures, put up some sacks today, and maybe clinch that contract. And it's a nothing burger, right? You saw that from a lot of guys on the defense today that had the opportunity to step up, particularly against this Texans roster. And again, you never want to underestimate any pro roster. On any given Sunday and all that. But Kenneth Murray started on the edge and had a chance against bottom tier offensive linemen. We talked about that with Uchenna Nwosu as well. The defensive line had a chance to really clog up the run game against Rex Burkhead and an interior that has just been getting gashed for the Texans. Like that's been a problem for them, and they just couldn't make any stops. Like, so I think it's partially an effort thing, like Steven said, but right now, I like when they're down guys, they just don't have the talent. I this is why the Chargers' highest ceiling is, you know, a potential playoff Super Bowl team. And when they're down their guys, and when they're, you know, in this kind of environment, they just can't produce. So, you know, if you're telling me going into the playoffs that they're going to have Joey Bosa and they're going to have Derwin James and all those guys, then yeah, I give them a chance to beat any team in the league still. But this game is one of those that just proves that it's part of a function of the system, but they just can't do it as currently constructed. They need more depth. They need, you know, a lot of offseason overhauling. But you know, you had a lot of guys who I think you could argue lost a lot of money today with how they played, and potentially the roster decisions going forward.
Yeah, no, that's a good call. I mean, this is going to be, you know, a breakout game for so many people, or a chance to stick around on the roster. You know, even to some degree, Mike Williams missing it. Not that it's any fault of his own, but him missing it again, a game he could have made some money, and he was out. Yeah, I don't know. I have no answers for what happened on defense. People are talking about the offense. Okay, so if I want to start about criticisms of the offense, I would say that it feels like there are stretches where Keenan Allen disappears and he shouldn't be. Yeah. It feels like maybe they could call more screens. It feels like they were working really well with tempo kind of in the fourth quarter. Maybe that wasn't there the whole game. Maybe that would have worked better. But the offense scored on every series that they didn't turn the ball over. Like, I mean, they were kind of moving all right. And, you know, there's a holding call on Quessenberry that stalls them, where they had the first down on like a second down carry and ended up forcing them back, and they couldn't convert on third down after that. But, you know, they were scoring pretty much okay. And considering everything that was out the last the last 3 weeks, the offense has generally been about the same. The running game looks pretty solid for the most part. I think Herbert's been protected. You know, for the most part, I think Herbert's made good reads. Like, the offense is generally clicking okay. So blaming the offense for this one, and I know they scored 30 partially because of garbage time, but they did put up 29, but they did put up 29, and they really could have had 30 if they just weren't going for it so frequently. I don't really blame the offense for this one. The defense just is a whole freaking mess right now, and I got no faith in them moving forward. This team, if they don't get any healthier, and even if they are healthy, they're not winning against Denver next week. I'll be at that game. I'll cheer, but they're not winning. That's a much, much better team, a much, much better coach team with much more talent. They're not going to win. And I'd be surprised if they would. So, yeah, this defense just, I don't understand what happens with the effort. You know, sometimes we see it post big wins where they have, you know, a huge win against this team, and the next game is a complete letdown. But I don't know what happens to him. Like you said, for Hoko, I think Samuel Jr. early on had a pass breakup or whatever. He showed some emotion. Otherwise, guys just kind of showed up today. And yeah. I don't know. I would hope, and I'm assuming that that Staley doing that whole Home Alone game plan thing, you know, kind of being haha and joking about the whole thing. You know, I'm assuming that wasn't their approach to this week entirely, and that was just one, you know, kind of funny moment. But it felt like that, to me, feels like how they took this week, where it's like, you know, let's talk about Home Alone, and throwing a brick at Joe Pesci and stuff like that. And it's like they didn't take the game seriously. Like, well, you know, we'll hold Derwin James out because we're probably going to win this game, and you know, we can get to next week, no problem. And they should have. I don't blame them for feeling that way, but it just felt like they just took a, you know, we'll win attitude, and the Texans just wanted it more, and that's a huge problem.
No, I don't think that they took them lightly, or, you know, focused in on, you know, the Home Alone stuff. I think that was just, you know, some Christmas fun, you know, at least I hope that's what it is. But I can't imagine that Brandon Staley would go out there and say, yeah, this was the best week of practice we've ever had here, and then also realize like, hey, like, this was a shitty week of practice. So I don't know, like, it it was a slow start to the game. There was no juice in the stadium. Like right after the field goal drive, it was just like there was no energy on the sideline. There was no,
Mm-hmm.
it was just empty. Like there was nothing like going on. And I just kept on waiting for something to spark this team. And whether that was Justin Jackson's touchdown or Jerry Tillery's sack, like it just nothing like got the team going. And I don't know why that is. I don't know why you have certain NFL teams will not show up. I mean, we saw the same thing with the Cardinals against the Lions. And, granted, the Cardinals are still in the playoff picture and probably will still make the playoffs. But, for whatever reason, this team just showed up and was going through the motions. And I wish I knew why that was. But, in terms of like evaluating players, like this is definitely going to leave a sour taste in my mouth when I'm talking about Uchenna Nwosu, talking about Mike Williams. I know he didn't play for obvious reasons, but it's just going to leave a sour taste in my mouth all offseason when I have to look back at this game against the Texans where you control your own destiny. All you have to do is go 3-0 against in some winnable situations. And not only are you in the playoffs, you're probably the 5 or the 6 seed, probably feeling good about yourself. And instead you come out against the Texans and you just don't show up. And whether that was they were too busy with Christmas, I don't really know. But this is just inexcusable. And maybe this doesn't happen when you have more of a veteran coaching staff. I don't really know the answer to that question. But this is going to be a loss that we talk about, or at least think about, all off season long. When we're talking about evaluating these players, talking about who wants to come and how much we want to pay them. Because if they don't make the playoffs, I think we're going to be feeling very differently about this team and about all these players. And, I'm not into the draft special yet. I'm not there talking about the draft. I'm not going to study draft prospects until the season is over because the Chargers are still in the playoff hunt. But this was a disaster for the Chargers. And I completely agree with Tyler. This is worse than losing to the 0-14 Browns because you have so much to look forward to if you beat the Texans and take care of your business, and they just didn't.
Yeah, and I mean, it's also Tyler. It's also about consistency. We talked about like how sometimes the Chargers just don't show up. Like their longest win streak of the season is 3, and it was when they were 4-1 coming off of the Browns win. Other than that, they haven't strung together 3 games the entire season, right? I mean, they get the Bengals and Giants, which is like great. Lose to the Chiefs, unfortunately, close one. But they just, from week to week, you don't know which team is going to show up. It could be the team that shows up against, if you just kind of want to list the games, it could be the team that shows up against the Browns and the Eagles and the Steelers and, the Bengals and the Giants. Or it could be the team that showed up against the Patriots and the Vikings and the Broncos and the Chiefs and the Texans, right? Like that's just who the Chargers have been for a lot of the season, unfortunately. And you add into this, it's holiday week, it's a COVID week, and all the other factors that kind of, just really slowed up the Chargers in this game. So to me, right, they're a very high volatility team. And so that's sort of been the point this year. I think that we've always kind of looked at next year as the all-in year. But I need to see more from this season still if we're really going to consider next year the all-in year. Because right now I'm still not seeing it from this team. Like you just have to win against the Texans if you want to be taken seriously as a contender, or even seriously as a team that maybe can pull off a wild card upset. So like to me, this is kind of the story of the Chargers 2021, other than the other positive and negative things we talk about. And so I don't know what the season holds going forward. Mathematically, they very well could still make the playoffs. You can beat the Broncos. You could beat the Raiders. Like, I don't think those teams have been super impressive. Like Tyler said, right now I would predict a Broncos loss if we're being honest with the Chargers. The Chargers would lose that game. But I could also see the Chargers winning by 20 because they're the Chargers and they'll get guys back from COVID. And you could theoretically talk yourself into it. The potential is there, but the effort, the consistency, both in coaching, in execution, the players that are on the field, just hasn't been there all year.
This loss just changes everything I thought about this coaching staff. I thought that they were above a loss like this, especially after they just destroyed the Giants with some players missing. They weren't exactly a healthy team going into that game. and they just blew out the Giants. I figured, okay, yeah, there's a lot of issues this week with COVID, but I figured they were talented enough to make that work, and it just changes everything I thought. I never thought this coaching staff, even with these issues, would have another Browns, 2016 or whatever the hell that year was, type loss. I never thought that this team would be like that, especially after, look, they were kind of depleted last week against the Chiefs on a short week, and they showed up. Like, guys showed up in that game, and they held out as long as they could, and then some of their obvious weaknesses let them down in the end, like Trey Marshall and some DB depth, but guys showed up at least. Man, I just thought this stuff was above a loss like this, and now it's weird because if they sneak into the postseason, whoever they play, assuming that most of their key starters are healthy, I might pick them to win because for whatever reason against those teams is like they will rise to that occasion. Yeah. But I always thought that their floor would be so much higher than usual because this coaching staff would always have them ready to at least come out with a win against these lesser teams, and they didn't. It really sours everything. I mean, I wasn't sure Justin Herbert was winning MVP before. He's definitely not winning it now. Staley, maybe if they'd beaten the Chiefs, could have Coach of the Year. He's definitely not winning that now. So it just really ruins the season. I mean, everyone was taking off towards the playoffs. We were talking playoffs, ready for it. And now they might not get there. And it almost feels like a wasted season at this point. We've gone from could contend with anybody in the playoffs, even the Chiefs, who are the best team in the AFC, to are we going to make it? And probably not. I can't believe we're saying that today.
Yeah, I got to say, 52 guys didn't show up today. Credit to Dustin Hopkins, though, buddy. You made that 50-yard field goal. It's the first 50-yard field goal I've seen for a Chargers kicker in like 80 years. So congrats to Dustin. You did better than Justin today.
Yeah. Dustin was kicking well, man. And I guess he's one of the positives. I think he is a kicker that I trust at this point for the most part. I had to laugh yesterday when Michael Badgley missed like a 51-yard field goal by like 3 feet, like wasn't even close to hitting. But outside of the fumble, Justin Jackson was the best player on the team. Justin Jackson is actually one of the players that I feel good about, like bringing back next season. If only we could just keep him healthy. Like I'm definitely not opposed to adding another running back into the rotation to bring in some competition. But Justin Jackson was the best player on the team, and there's going to be a lot of criticism for Lombardi. There has been in this chat, but I thought that they called this game like a team that knew that they could run the ball, that knew that they didn't really have a full repertoire of pass catchers, and a team that knew that the defense was going to be in a bad spot. So, once the time of possession the difference in time of possession gets so drastic like it was in the third quarter, you have to be able to keep your defense off the field at some point. And so you do that by running the ball and keeping the defense on the field with Justin Jackson. So I thought Jackson played really well. It looked like Josh Palmer was headed towards a good day and then kind of disappeared in the second half. And Keenan Allen, was not super active in this one for whatever reason. I can understand the frustrations, but also like you call the deep passes today and Justin Herbert makes an awful throw to Josh Palmer. And, you have a miscommunication with Jared Cook, which leads to, a pick six. So I was okay with the game plan today on the offensive side of things. Like I said, again, Justin Jackson ran hard. They blocked really well. It just, you don't turn the ball over and you score 35 points in this game relatively easily. But you have a bad pick at the end of the first half. Then you have the pick six. Then you have a weird fumble by Justin Jackson. So, you don't turn the ball over and you probably win this game. And even if the defense is playing that shitty. And so that's really kind of where I'm at with the offense today.
Yeah, I mean, the offense could have had, I don't remember how, I think Eckler had one fumble against the Browns, but otherwise they had a really clean game that game. Yeah. And they just won a boat race 47-42. That's exactly how this game could have gone. But yeah, you're right. Sure. They just Justin Jackson, man, 162 yards. I said that he'd have more rushing yards than Eckler did this season in any game. He didn't, but 162 total yards and 2 touchdowns. I don't know why some of the fan base was so upset about them handing the ball off to Jackson with 13 minutes left in the fourth quarter, down 2 scores. Like, I know you want to put the ball in Herbert's hands, but it's not like they were really taking it out of his hands. They just handed it to him once on the drive. And again, he averaged what? See, 19 carries for 162 yards. I mean, the guy's giving eight yards a touch at this point.
Yeah.
I don't understand the criticism there. But good for him. If they don't have to draft a running back in the middle rounds or whatever, late rounds again, like a Roundtree, like a Kelly, and they can just keep Jackson, great. I'd like for them to find one more person that could really catch the ball. But otherwise, good for him. Honestly, like this could have been terrible. I will credit the offense for getting the run game, or at least the running backs, going pretty well the last few weeks. They could have folded with, X player out or even Eckler out or hurt. But the run game has been going, and that's like a really strong thing that they can carry into the postseason. And they're not going to make it. Like everything seems on offense to be working okay as long as guys are there. And man, they're not even going to make it at this point. It's so awful. My heart is broken today, man.
Yeah, Justin Jackson played a good game. I think that's. I mean, he sort of solidified himself the last couple of weeks. I know a lot of people were talking about we were talking every week about what the RB2 situation was and the fact that they don't have an RB2. So they have Justin Jackson as a guy that I think can carry a decent chunk of the offense now. So that is a good thing to see going forward. I don't know whether he'll be on the team next year. Potentially someone could sign him and maybe they'll promote Roundtree or someone else, or they'll re-sign Jackson. Who knows? But yeah, it's about the only good thing I can think of today. We're doing it, I don't know if we even want to do studs and duds, but Justin Jackson would probably be a stud even with the fumble, and everyone else is probably looking at the dud column, unfortunately. I thought the offense looked okay for most of the game. Unfortunately, you have the turnovers in the pivotal moments that just killed him. The fumble with Justin Jackson down 9, and then of course the Herbert pick to Palmer, which was just kind of unnecessary. And the game was kind of already over when Herbert tossed the pick 6. I mean, really. Sure. I don't really look at that as like a decisive one, but we talked about Chargers as a team that kind of wins on turnover differential, and they lost on turnover differential today, right? Like you beat the Chiefs in that September game with 4 turnovers you forced against them. I don't know what the turnover differential was today. I would assume it was 3-0 in favor of Texans. Yeah. And that is about how the game played out, unfortunately. So I just see people in this chat writing stuff like let me find it, where someone was like, if the Chargers win out and Baltimore loses one of their last 2 games, then the Chargers would be the 7th seed and be playing Tennessee. Guys, I'm gonna real talk here. We just lost to the Texans. No more comments about playoff picture. You have to. There's a 48-hour period where we do not discuss playoff picture after we just got toasted by Davis Mills. Okay,
at least 24 hours.
At least 24 hours before we talk about NFL playoff picture. The Chargers are just a high volatility football team, like I've said on the show, and we saw the very, very low end of that today, particularly on the defensive side of the ball.
No, it's just like I said earlier. You head into today controlling your own destiny, and now you don't. Like you're on the outside looking in. Like that's the reality of the Chargers right now. They will need some help to make the playoffs, and they, at this point, I don't want to say they don't deserve it. I don't want to say losing to the Texans automatically disqualifies them, but this is the worst loss of my life as a Chargers fan. Like I can honestly say that, like, given the fact, like, because there have been other times where you lose to a bad team, right? Like, you lose to the 0-14 Browns and stuff like that. Like that's all bad. But this team, like, we were all drinking the Kool-Aid, right? Like, you get 6 Pro Bowlers, you have Justin Herbert, who's a legitimate MVP candidate. You are looking at this stretch as a 3-0 stretch, and then see what happens in the playoffs. And maybe given a matchup, you could potentially win a game, maybe 2. You get a rematch with the Chiefs. Like, we were all saying that after last Thursday. We want the Chiefs again. We want the Chiefs again. And then today, against, the 3rd or 4th worst team in the league, you just completely lay an egg. So maybe it is being dramatic. I don't really know. But right now, I don't really want to talk about the playoffs. I don't think the Chargers are there right now. And this is the worst loss of my life, given the fact that the expectations for this team were so high. I was expecting this team to win a playoff game. I was expecting this team to potentially make a run at an AFC championship game, given, potentially matchups. And so now you're on the outside looking in because you lose to the Texans, like the Texans of all teams. Like, If they had beaten the Texans and lose to the Broncos next week, I would have been like, okay, at least the Broncos are good. But you lose to the Texans when you're on the verge of the playoffs, like this is a bad loss for the Chargers.
Yeah, like I want to say like the Chargers at times can be a team that looks like they deserve to go to the playoffs. We saw that last Thursday night, right?
Absolutely.
Like they look like that team. But playoff teams don't lose these games, right? Like just flat out. I know people are going to say, "Oh, the Titans lost to the Texans," whatever. Titans are also in control of their own division, and in control of their own destiny, and they're coming off of a win against the Niners. So to me, you can like split hairs here and say that there's not a lot of difference between say what the Chargers are doing and what all the other 10, 8 and 7 teams in the AFC are doing. But like everyone else kind of has beat up on the Texans, right? I mean, other than the Jags and Urban Meyer, and you don't
great company to be in.
Yeah, not great company to be in. I make fun of Urban Meyer, but we just lost a team that Urban Meyer got cooked by. So like yeah, I mean, as Craig says in the chat, they're a very Jekyll and Hyde kind of team. And to me, the Chargers might make the playoffs. I could see them winning a playoff game, but right now, as we sit here today, and as we sat here after the Vikings game, and as we sat here after the Patriots game, I just don't feel like the quality of football I saw today was a team that deserves to be in the playoffs.
Yeah, and I hate that we're giving the Raiders hope, who are now up 7-0, and not only giving them hope, but that last game of the season now probably matters. I mean, it does to the Chargers for sure, and it likely will for the Raiders as well. That's no longer like we can probably win this, but it's okay. We'll still be a 6th seed or whatever. The Chargers have to win in Vegas, and this Raiders team, is up 7-0 on the Broncos team. The Chargers might lose to next week. That Raiders team is awful, but they're fighting. And they're ahead of the Broncos right now, and the Chargers have to go to their stadium to try to win. And who knows who's playing for the Chargers? And do we think we can win based on the performance today? Now, I think they can win with the guys that come back. Jesus, man, it's really going to come down to that game, and Steve and I are going to be there. Oh God, please hope they win that game.
Yeah, that's going to be, it's going to be an elimination game. Excuse me. I swear I'm like at the tail end of this thing. I swear I am. But this is just, man, it just is so frustrating, looking at this team and where they were at. And like Tyler said earlier, you have a Jekyll and Hyde team for sure. You have inconsistencies. I feel like I've done a good job this year of like, weighing the big picture and like, this isn't the all-in year. This isn't the year that matters the most. This isn't, Super Bowl or bust kind of season. And but you still expect this team and this coaching staff to come into this game and beat the Texans by a good margin. And we've Craig's asking who's going to broach the personnel decision topic. I feel like we've talked about that a lot. Brandon Staley is essentially signing anybody that used to be a Bronco into the secondary, and it's not working. Trey Marshall, Tavon Campbell, they were all on the COVID list today. And so you have Devontae Harris, who was mostly a special teams player for the Broncos and the Ravens. And he made Nico Collins and Chris Conley look like they were Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson. Like, it was bad. And, it's tough to rely on like your 8th corner to be a good player. And I get that. But you look at somebody like a Brandon Faison, who they are familiar with, who's now playing pretty well for the Raiders. Or you have John Brannon, who I don't know where he's at right now, but you have these players that you're familiar with that aren't just exclusively playing for the Broncos. And like, you can sign other players, Brandon. You don't have to go, oh, this guy played for me with Denver. Okay, he's our guy. So I don't know. I just thought the coaching staff was above this, especially after last week. Like, you put in Trey Pipkins in place of Rashawn Slater.
Yep.
And your offense barely misses a beat. Like, your offense should have put up 50 points on the Chiefs last week. And then to come out against the Texans and play like this, I just thought this team and this coaching staff was above this kind of game and this kind of loss.
Congrats to Chris Harris. No longer the worst Harris on the defense.
Are we sure about that, though? Because he wasn't exactly good today either.
Devontae was pretty bad today, man. I mean, he could have been fined a bunch of times and wasn't, weirdly. And all the coverage. I mean, Chris Harris was bad too, but Devontae Harris was that was something special. He's like he's like the Devontae Adams, except being terrible. Like he's really good at being terrible. That's what I felt like of watching Devontae Harris today. He was just a disaster class.
Yeah, that was neat. Hope Michael Davis is feeling okay. I know he just got tested positive for COVID right before the game. I think Craig said something like, "Hey, we're not out of the woods yet. There could be one more test before the game." So it's Craig's fault.
Well, and that's so weird to me too with like the COVID test stuff. Like, I mean, how is Michael Davis like not coming up for warm-ups because they just told him he had COVID? And I mean, he probably traveled there and was around players. I mean, for the duration of the morning. So, I mean, it's just another episode of like the NFL just doing this stuff by the whim. But yeah, no, I definitely thought the personnel decisions were just weird today in terms of the guys they decided to play. At the same time, they didn't really have much of a choice, you know, in terms of what they were left with on the roster. And I think, like we said earlier in the show, that sort of falls on Tom Telesco and not, you know, building out the depth on this roster to a team that can put some backup defensive tackles or backup linebackers, backup cornerbacks and safeties in and still have a modicum of success.
Yeah. Speaking of personnel decisions, what did you think of them activating 3 receivers off the practice squad and not KJ Hill at all?
I mean, we saw the difference between having more one-on-one on the boundary versus having Mike Williams. I mean, we saw that today a little bit, but I'm not surprised they activated 3 receivers, I guess. I mean, at the same... Michael Bandy was there returning kicks. He didn't look too great, but, I mean, it is what it is.
Les Grossman, I will bench 225 tomorrow and show you that I can do that, by the way. Just FYI. Steven definitely can. I'll do it. Fuck it.
I mean, that's just hilarious. Like, why are you watching our show if you're going to come here and talk shit about our physiques? Like, cool. Good for you, I guess.
Like, I come on this show knowing full well that Kenneth Murray could beat the shit out of me. Like, I know that very well. That's not the point of this show.
Les Grossman, do you have a Twitter? I'll do it. I swear to God, I'll do it tomorrow.
All right,
All
guys, you're doing the thing where you read the chat from nobody's. Can we get back to the Chargers, please?
Listen, whatever.
No, but the personnel for the receivers, I thought like they didn't really have a. I mean, I guess they had a choice like that. I mean, I guess this signifies that they don't really, trust KJ Hill and having Jason Moore over him. I 100% get. You want that. Vertical threat. You want that bigger body in there. I get that, but Michael Bandy over KJ Hill, that's an odd one. I think Maurice French played like 5 or 6 snaps on offense, and he was the first one to return the kick. And like he's the faster guy. I would have expected him to be like the returner. But it was odd. And I think that's partially why they kind of leaned into the running game again. But you like, who do you have else? And so I don't know. It just is. It was a rough day. I want to talk really quickly about the 4th down decisions too before we kind of wrap this up, because last week obviously Staley was hyper aggressive. Today he was not that situation. Again, they would have been longer 4th downs. You have a 4th and 7, you have a 4th and 5. I forget what the 3rd field goal was. I want to say like it would have been like 4th and 4. 4th and 3-ish. But it was just interesting that Staley didn't even attempt one of the 4th downs. Like he went full tilt the other way into the field goal game and taking the points. And, Daniel Jeremiah was on the Rich Eisen show and was saying, that when he was like looking back at the Vikings game, he felt like them not being aggressive was a detriment to their team. And so I wonder if that is also true today. What did you guys make of those decisions to kick field goals instead of go for the 4th downs?
I kind of thought that when it was 17-12 in that 4th and 4 you mentioned, that was the one to me where I felt like they should have gone for it, because it's like you're down 5 and it's like, well, if you turn over the ball, I don't know if the Texans got points after that drive. I think they might have actually not. But it felt like, well, if you go down 2 possessions here, like that gets pretty hairy. As far as the ones in the first quarter or the first half when they kicked field goals and were down 7-6, I was okay with those, to be honest. And I mean, I feel like that whole narrative, like that Staley was a computer boy who just looks at the analytics and then decides what he's going to do. Like
Right.
that kind of got dispelled today. Like, I mean, he took 2 field goals when some would argue that he could have taken a touchdown or could have gone for it.
Right.
I was fine with the calls today, to be honest, other than the one then they were down 17-12. At the same time, they put themselves in a position in that game where they're down 17-15. And it's like, well, the defense gets 1 stop, we're back in this. And then
Right.
the defense proceeded to not get any stops.
Mhm.
So I think you can make an argument that maybe they should have been more aggressive late, but with how the defense was playing, it wouldn't have mattered if they were more aggressive late because they couldn't get a stop.
Yeah, if anyone says it's like, oh, it's an overreaction or overcorrection from when they played the Chiefs, I mean, yes, it is it's very different, obviously, than when they played the Chiefs.
Here's the overcorrection. They were playing the Chiefs
Texans.
in prime
Yes,
time.
exactly.
And they were playing the Texans today.
Exactly.
That's
Right.
the difference.
No, did anyone believe that the Texans were going to go score at will in this game? No. And especially after that second series where they stopped them, it's like, okay, our defense is more talented than their offense. We can make this work. And Staley should know his defense and figures, hey, we'll get a stop at some point, right? They just didn't. In the same way that you go for it against the Chiefs multiple times on 4th down, you kind of can trust your defense to at some point get a stop on any 3rd down of this game, and they didn't. They could have converted at any 4th down of the Chiefs game, they didn't. And the defense in this game could have had a number of stops, and they didn't. So Staley betting on his defense this week makes sense, and it completely didn't work. But no, I understand for the most part all the decisions. I don't think it was an overcorrection because they didn't make it last week. It's just because of the team that they were playing.
No, I agree with Alex, what he was saying. You have the first 2 and you kick the field goals. I totally understand that. I was definitely surprised that when it was 17-12, that they did not go for it on 4th down, especially, you have the 4. It was definitely not like a short 4th down, but 4th and 4 is manageable for this team. But, I'm interested. Actually, I'm not that interested, but it's going to be funny to see the discourse on, if any, on Brandon Staley's decisions this week, when everybody in the media was kind of crucifying him for going for it for so much on the 4th downs. And then this week, he doesn't.
Here's the difference between this situation. No one watched that game today, and everyone in America watched the Chargers-Chiefs game. So I think that'll be the difference on the discourse on Twitter.
True. If we're lucky, the media won't talk about the Chargers at all this week.
That's the saving grace today, is that I think no one watched that game, because I saw, because usually if the Chargers lose, my friends just roast me and they're like, oh, what happened, buddy? So, if the Chargers, no one watching a Chargers loss, maybe it just didn't happen. And so I think that's the one saving grace of Chargers-Texans, is that no one watched that game.
Yeah. So media members, stay away. Don't talk about us this week. I can tell everybody right now, I will not be watching the film back from this game. I will not be torturing myself this week for that. Tyler and I have been charting stuff and trying to compare with PFF certain things and data and stuff like that. So I missed I didn't chart the first couple of games. So that's what I'm going to do instead of watching this garbage back this week. I'm going to go back.
You get to go watch them lose to the Cowboys.
I think this is the week I'll watch film. I think this is the week that I will do a YouTube film breakdown on the Chargers plus the Texans, just because Steven and Tyler don't want to do it, and maybe I'll bring a couple beverages with me along the way.
Yeah. So, I think that's a good spot to wrap it up. I don't really have any.
Do we want to do a Q&A?
Any positives?
Well, we talked about Justin Jackson and Dustin Hopkins already. That's about it for me.
That's pretty much it, huh? Braden Fehoko was blocking on kickoff return. That was something. And he knocked the guy down the field, man.
Defense. I didn't even notice that he was blocking on kickoff.
Also, I see this guy. I'm like, that's a huge dude blocking out in front. Hits Fehoko running at the 40, knocking guys downfield. Like, what? Oh, this team, man. That was entertaining.
The one thing that was funny, too, is he had that one run stop in the end of the first quarter, and his entire sleeve was ripped off. Braden Fehoko, shout out to him, because he put it all on the line today, and he was the only one on defense.
Yeah, I'm just looking at the box score to see if I can find anything that's relatively positive. And Emeka Egbule, he did okay.
Yeah, he was fine.
One of Tyler's best friends, Emeka Egbule, friend of the Shooting family, had a great game today. But no,
in all seriousness, if Joey Bosa and Chris Rumph are out again next week, do not play
Oh God,
Kenneth Murray more snaps than Emeka Egbule, because at least Emeka Egbule is like showing signs of like being an actual edge rusher. And if Murray can't get it done against the Texans and their third string tackles, like I have been against that experiment from day one. He struggled to shed blockers with space in between him and the blockers. Now he's at the point of attack and he's getting destroyed. So now you have Tillery, who is improving, but he still is a liability against the run.
Mm-hmm.
And then you place another liability against the run next to him. So you have a player like Cole Toner, who this regime decided was not good enough to be brought back on the Chargers, just destroying the left side of the defensive line. So I am completely out on Kenneth Murray as an edge rusher. I want them to move him back to linebacker and just kind of deal with the growing pains. But as an edge rusher, I'm out.
Yeah, I sort of came into this week, and I think there was a lot of discussion about Kenneth Murray, about if the Chargers should trade him in the offseason, and what you could potentially get back for him. And I was like, well, I mean, you probably are only going to get like a 6th or 7th round pick back for him if you trade him. Like, he's got 2 years left on a rookie deal, and any GM can just go, well, I'm going to take a 4-year contract linebacker in the draft. Like, that's the economics of the whole Kenneth Murray situation if you were going to trade him. Now I'm like, a 6th or 7th round pick. I mean, that would be kind of awesome.
We can have 5 6th round picks.
Then we can have 5 of them.
Unfortunately,
he was just bad today. Like, I mean, the edge rusher thing doesn't work. The linebacker thing doesn't work. I would like to see him back at linebacker to at least see if you can try to kind of get something out of it, because I do still think at his core, like, that's probably what he would do best. I think all of us were on kind of record that we were never big fans of the edge rusher experiment from day one. But yeah, no, I mean, this is like, I mean, pretty bad. Like, he just doesn't work in this defense as it currently stands. I think that's equally as much a Kenneth Murray problem as much as it is a defensive coordinator and defense problem. Like, I do think Brandon Staley should be getting more out of Kenneth Murray than he currently is. I think that's something that we have to talk about. And also, someone told me to stop laughing and stop drinking. That's how I'm coping. I just want to be clear that's how I cope with this stuff, because that was just disastrous. But no, I think Murray is probably on the outside looking in terms of the offseason. I don't know if they have much of a choice but to try to get out of that contract by a trade or something, or you leave him on the bottom of the roster and like try to kind of rebuild his value. But it's looking pretty terrible.
Yeah. I wanted to find some sort of positive, and I did a poll like, hey guys, what do you think his stat line is going to be this game? Is he going to have 1 to 2 pressures, 2 to 3 3 to 4 pressures, whatever? And hundreds of people voted 3 to 4 pressures or more than 5 pressures. I really don't think he had one this game, and he has 2 assisted tackles on ESPN right now, no solo tackles. It's bad. It's as bad as I can remember a player looking. Like, at least with, say, Jerry Tillery on his worst days, you can say that there was a play or 2 that he had that he made that was pretty good, right? Maybe 1 sack, and then he's bad the rest of the game. Kenneth Murray, it's all bad. He can't do anything. When it's the run game, he's getting washed out of that play, one-on-one versus the tackle, to the point where the difference between the hole that the running back can run through looks like 5 yards, because they're just taking Murray and going, okay, go over there, please. And then when he rushes, and we pointed out so many times, he only rushes kind of one way, and that's all he's got. Yeah. And you do have to blame the coaching staff a little bit, for whatever they convinced themselves that they thought he was. Like, oh yeah, he was an edge linebacker hybrid the whole time. You taught him 0 edge rusher moves as a pass rusher. There's nothing there. Bull rush maybe, but that's not really, come on, that's not a pass rush move. Everybody can do that. There's no moves. There's no counters. There's nothing. There's no bend. There's nothing there that looks like a player who has ever played edge or can play edge or has been taught anything about how to play edge. There's nothing there. It looks like Hamilcar Rashid almost, like watching him in the draft or something. High athlete kind of guy.
Some people are going to hate that comment.
Well, screw it. Like, what's the difference? The guy had two. It looks bad. Like, if Murray did that in college, what grade would you have given him? Like, he would have been an upside guy. He would have been the upside guy that you take on day 3 because he has tons of athletic talent and he's a good guy and he's a 4-year starter at Oklahoma or whatever. If that were his tape as an edge rusher, like, I'd take Quincy Roche over him maybe because at least Quincy Roche had some bend to him.
And Roche's playing well.
And he's playing well, of course. It's bad. So he's not playing well, but also the coaching staff just set him up to fail, I think. And
yes,
because they didn't treat him like an actual edge. They didn't really give him any edge snaps at all. And like Joey Bosa is on the sideline to back up going, okay, try this. Are the coaches telling him anything? Because I mean, there's no way that they're coaching him to just go around the guy every time, but it's not even around. It's just like 10 yards upfield and then like a curl back towards the quarterback or something. As much as I want to, say that he's kind of a bust at this point, the coaches are doing no favors at that spot. So I would rather, hopefully Rumph comes back. Obviously Bosa, these guys come back and you can put some real edges out there, but I'd rather him be a situational blitzer. They rotate Ogbongbemiga in, granted, because Tranquil was hurt. Let him blitz through the A gap, maybe drop into zone. And, occasionally if they run a trick play and it's like a sweep, jet sweep or whatever, Murray can chase that down or something. But at edge, it's actually pointless. It's pointless. He has more missed tackles coming into this game than tackles at edge. And I'm positive that's going to hold after this game where he played 60 or whatever snaps.
Let's play a game called How Many Tackles Does Kenneth Murray Have on the Season? I will
currently or at edge?
Currently for the season.
For the whole season?
Yeah.
What is he? Well, he missed what, 5 games?
Mm-hmm. No. 18. Oh, he's actually at 24. Okay. He's kind of balling out at 24 compared to the 18 you predicted. But yeah, like that was just one of those things where I'm looking at it and I'm like, imagine going back a year ago and telling someone that Kenneth Murray would have 24 tackles after he had 107 in a Gus Bradley green dot defense where he also had 5 tackles for loss. It's been rough, and I definitely think a lot of it falls on Kenneth Murray, the player, for his lack of development. But there's some real questions to be asked about who exactly the defensive coaching staff is maximizing on this defense, because right now I don't really know if the answer is anyone.
Yeah, I feel bad for Kenneth Murray. He definitely hasn't played up to the standard that we all thought we had for him heading into the season. But switching him positions, like full-time switching him positions mid-season, was never going to be the answer in terms of maximizing his athleticism. And if they had said, we're going to give him, 10, 15 rotational snaps at linebacker because he's been beaten out, like, sure. And then, 5 to 10 snaps at edge, and as a way to give him a different look and see what we have there, I would have understood that. Mm-hmm. But to flat out say he's going to be an edge rusher 100% of the time, that to me was a mistake. And I think it's one of Brandon Staley's biggest mistakes, if not the biggest mistake in terms of personnel of the year. And, now you're looking forward to kind of like the future for Kenneth Murray and what does it hold? Well, I think everybody agrees that the Chargers need to find an upgrade at edge rusher, whether that's an upgrade over Unwosu or an upgrade over Rumph/Fackrell or Murray. Like, they need more pass rush help. And so if he's an edge rusher, next year he is at best the 4th edge rusher on the depth chart. Mm-hmm. If he's a linebacker, he is the 3rd linebacker behind Kaiser White and Drew Tranquil again, because I'm very confident that Kaiser White is coming back and Drew Tranquil will be on his last year of his rookie deal. So I feel bad for Kenneth Murray. I never thought that switching him full-time to edge was the solution of getting more out of him. And now the Chargers have no choice. They either have to ride this out and, see what they have there, or switch him back to linebacker. And then you're just messing with his head at that point. he's not going to have any confidence heading into next season because he doesn't know if he's an edge rusher or a linebacker or what. So again, I would have understood using him like a versatile chess piece, but what they're doing now, I never understood this argument. I was firmly against using him as an edge rusher full time. And some of it is him, he's doing the same exact, I'm not even going to try to turn this corner. I'm just going to run right past the quarterback and do nothing. But at the same time, you look at what this coaching staff is doing with other players, and Murray's not getting that same kind of development. And so, you feel bad for him, and it just sucks. It's an awful situation for a player that we all really liked coming out of the draft. We liked as a rookie, and now we are having a hard time finding a spot for him on this team.
He'll be active on game day, but if Rumpf came back and if Fackrell somehow returns for the playoffs and if Bosa and Mosa were healthy, you can make an argument that he would be inactive on game day, sadly, because they clearly feel like Neiman and Ogbongbemiga, I think, are prospects they'd rather explore at linebacker than him.
Yeah.
Man, I feel bad for him. He's a guy that's always exceeded expectations, a guy that you love to, like, his story is great. He's so amazing with his family. He wasn't supposed to start at Oklahoma. He earned that starting role. It was like their first freshman rookie starter, whatever it was. Just all the accolades in college. Maybe not like the best linebacker prospect, but it's certainly a good one.
Yeah. And
then for it to turn out like this, man, I feel so bad. I feel so bad for him because, I mean, how much hype was there at the beginning of the season, and Brandon Staley is like, oh my God, we have a fucking Kenneth Murray. Like, yeah, we have, we've had these guys, but this year I have a fucking Kenneth Murray. And the guys that he had at linebacker last year with the Rams, not that great, not as talented as Kenneth Murray. And for him to just be this bad, it's sad. It's actually really sad. I don't know what there is you can build with moving forward unless you're just banking on the fact that he was a very talented first-round pick. At least Jerry Tillery, you see, okay, he's a situational pass rusher. Maybe that's what you can say. At worst, he's a good situational pass rusher, and I can rock with that. Kenneth Murray can't stop the run. I don't know what he's going to be doing in coverage, but hasn't been great recently. And he can't rush the passer. There's nothing there to work with. So they probably can't trade him. I've been kind of the weirdo who's like, they should probably trade him because they have no spot for him. You can't trade a guy like that, but you can't do anything with him either. So I'm really curious to see how the season plays out and how next season looks for him because, yeah, they need a serious upgraded edge, and he's just not it.
Can you trade supplementary draft picks? I think if we could get a supplemental draft pick back for Kenneth Murray, I mean, it would be something.
Trade him to the Lions.
I mean, you never somebody would look at him like Laquan Treadwell is still in the league because of his first round status, and he's never been anything good. So there's always somebody that will look at like a former first round pick and be like, I can work with that. Like,
here's the thing. I was actually talking about this with Arjun on a Q&A, and we were talking about where Kenneth Murray could go, what he's going to do in this defense. And I think it was me and Arjun said on the show that like Bill Belichick would turn Kenneth Murray into Kyle Van Noy and
100%.
Jamie Collins. 100%. And then we would be like, why did we let him go? And it's like 100% would happen with Kenneth Murray there.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. I mean, I think there's a development question to be asked for sure. And it's just really disappointing effort from the defense all around. And it goes back to what Tyler said at the top with Tommy T.
Yeah. Man, that was it just sucked, man. So thank you guys for tuning in. I understand that this is definitely not the post-game live show that we were all expecting. But we always appreciate your support. Alex is back in the States. Tyler and I had Christmas, so hope everyone's doing good. What are you doing, Alex?
I got this menorah back here. So happy Hanukkah, Merry Christmas, and happy whatever you celebrate holiday. I hope you all got whatever you want as gifts. I hope you were able to spend some time with family. And you probably needed that time with your family and your loved ones because that game was hard to watch.
Yeah, I got everything that was on my list, but I don't remember asking for a swift kick in the balls for 4 quarters. But unfortunately, I ended up with that.
Sometimes the heart doesn't know what it wants until it happens. And, we all really wanted a swift kick in the balls.
Yeah, I got a new microphone for the podcast, and I was like, you know what, this post game episode doesn't deserve the grace of having a
don't
new
use the microphone
microphone.
until they win another game. They have to win a game first before you use the microphone.
Oh shit!
So
Let's return the gift now.
You might not use it until next season, but
Oh my gosh, good stuff though. But yeah, we'll see. It's going to be a really interesting week. We of course will talk about the Broncos more after today. I'm not talking about the Texans ever again. Going to completely wipe this from my memory. I will not be watching film, like I said earlier. But we'll have to see how the rest of the game goes. These last two games against the Broncos and the Raiders are that much more important, and it's going to be very crucial for a lot of players on this team who are up for new contracts. And one of those players isn't going to be playing against the Broncos. So that's fun. Anyways, that's going to do it for us today, guys. Thank you so much for watching the show and supporting the show. If you wouldn't mind, please leave us a rating or review on the audio platform of your choice. Alex had 2 Coronas on the show, so that's fun.
Merry Christmas.
I love it. All right. Thank you, guys. That's going to do it. We'll talk to you next time.